Hello everyone, my name is Chaos in the Sky, and welcome to PPL D2 Season 3 Power Rankings. I am joined today by Togavor, otherwise known as Chris. How's it going, man?
It's going good. What's going on, everyone? It's Togavor here, and excited for these Week 2 Power Rankings.
It's gonna be good. Before we start, I just wanted to kind of point out, we're a little opposite of last week. Last week, our bottom and top were the same, and then mixed up in the middle. And I think this week, we're more mixed up at the top and the bottom, and the same in the middle.
I mean, kind of, but also just, besides one team, everyone is within 2 spots of each other, so...
Yes. I think you're right. Yeah, they are.
So, I mean, no, overall, we pretty much
two teams are 2 away. But,
no, 2 teams are 2 away. One is 4 away, but besides that, everything's really close, so...
Yep. Alright, well, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So, my number 12 this week is the Portland Timbers RTK. Yeah. So week 1 wasn't the greatest thing when he faced off versus Steve and the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. And then week 2, pretty much, same story versus Tup. Another 3-0 victory. Garchomp was a real problem from him just right from the get-go, and he didn't really have the defensive options or the speed to really handle it, as a lot of the things that could OHKO it were slower than it, and that's why I was able to get 2 early kills really early on, and that just put him at such a disadvantage that it paved the way for Tup to take the game with Keldeo and Entei, and he just really was offensively pressured right from the get-go because of that Garchomp, and there was pretty much nothing he could do.
Yeah, as usual, I know a little bit more about RTK's situation than the rest, because I talked with RTK, and I have him at 11. He said that he really got thrown off with the SD turn 1, because he did consider just flat-out attacking the Garchomp, but he really expected Stealth Rocks or just a flat-out Dragon Claw because it would kill Excelgor. So he had HP Ice, which would have 2-hit KO'd with Yachi, I believe, because he was Life Orb, and also Bug Buzz 2-hit KO'd, I believe, but he just kind of over-predicted, and it really, really cost him for the rest of the match. Yeah,
just put him behind, and that shows you how important those early turns can be if you get one play wrong.
The lead can sometimes make a match, and in this case,
100%.
It really did.
Yep.
But anyways, anything else you want to say on RTK?
No, that's it. I don't think he necessarily played particularly bad, and I don't necessarily think he played particularly bad week 1 either, but it was just kind of mediocre both weeks, and I really think the biggest problem in both weeks was his prep, and in both times just kind of being a little bit passive and not really having a way to retake momentum. And also I want to point out that both weeks he was overpowered by a physical setup sweeper that he didn't see coming. And so I think that that's a potential flaw in his team, or maybe in his team building, that he needs to patch up. But I think part of that can come from the fact that his more physically defensive things are kind of passive, like Vaporeon.
Yeah.
Which kind of can lead to those physical setup sweepers taking advantage of his team.
I agree wholeheartedly. Over to my number 12, we have Eric and the Bristol Beedoofs. Eric, man, what are you doing? What's happening, bro? You got all kinds of lucky this week, and you even admitted it. You got rolls and whatnot, and you still lost crits. Yeah. You got crits and rolls, and you still lost 1-0. What's going on, man? I need to have a talk with Eric, apparently, in his spare time. But he did, to his credit, he knew what was happening the whole time. He understood what was going on, and he saw where he lost and why he was going to lose and how he could try to stop it, but he just couldn't. With between Talonflame and Zapdos near the end, he knew how it was going to go down. He's like, oh, he's weakening the last of the mons that can beat Talonflame, and now I'm banded, and I can't beat Talonflame plus Zapdos because I can't choose E-Speed or Flare Blitz. I need both, but I can only have one, and he really understood what was going on, which is, to show credit to Eric, he is a good battler. He's been in a lot of league stuff, but he just, in this case, couldn't really do anything about it. He let Sandslash go down too soon, which was his main, one of his main things to deal with Talonflame, and he touched on that as well. It was just, it was a really close match, though, to his credit.
It definitely was, and I don't think he played poorly at all. I think the bigger issue, again, similarly to last week, was more the preparation. I think that Sandslash is not a physical wall by any stretch of the imagination. It has no way of recovery aside from leftovers, and its bulk is not honestly that impressive. While decently in stats, its HP is not that high, and Talonflame is very, very strong. And I think that in this particular match, he brought a physically defensive Sandslash that had way too much pressure on it for Ellie's team, which was coached by Mono this week. But I just think that wasn't pressure. And I think, again, physically defensive Arcanine, I'm gonna be the champion for it all season long. But I've seen it before in many different league matches. Physically defensive Arcanine is a very, very effective counter to Talonflame as long as you manage to keep rocks off the field. So if he could use that Sandslash just to be a more pivot and keep rocks off the field for his Arcanine, a more defensive variant definitely could have taken the pressure off his team, and that would have let things like Hydreigon and Mega Scizor, stay healthy and be able to plow through Ellie's team.
Yes. I'm going to DM Eric after we're done and say, hey, go talk to Slyro. He uses Arcanine like every single league.
And it's like physically defensive every single time.
Yes, I think he's brought off
kills.
Yeah, I think he's brought offensive Arcanine once, and it got less kills than all of his defensive Arcanines.
Exactly.
But anyways, Eric, defensive Arcanine, it's great. But yeah, it was still a good match though. Like you said, he didn't play horribly. I do agree with you. It was probably mostly due to the prep of putting too much pressure on Sandslash. It can be a really good Mon, but physically defensive, apparently it does not as good as it needed to.
Yeah, it can be when it really walls something, but I found from my experience with the Pokemon and seeing other people use it effectively, I think it's much better when it's used as a pivot or a rapid spinner, as that's what it should be used for.
Or Choice Scarf.
We don't talk about that. For those of you who don't know, that was a reference to me losing to a Choice Scarf Sandslash in a big tournament.
I didn't even know that it was you who lost to that. I just knew
wow,
that Mono used it.
That's hilarious. No, that was me in the semifinals.
Oh.
That's hilarious. Yeah, but in general, I just think that, Sandslash is a Pokemon like Mini. You see it with, I think, a lot of other defoggers that don't have reliable recovery. They often on teams try to get forced into too many roles. I think you see it a lot with Empoleon in the format. Sometimes it'll be forced into being the bulky steel, the bulky water, and the defogger. And that's just not an effective strategy if you want to succeed.
A bulky water that's weak to ground and fighting.
Exactly, and fire. Or not resistance.
Neutral to fire, yeah.
That's what I meant, yeah. But I just think that can be kind of the dangerous thing with like spinners or defoggers that aren't necessarily offensive, but they don't have reliable recovery. And that's why that's why I think physically defensive Arcanine to combine with the Florges would have done a lot better in that game. But yeah, no, overall his play, just like his week 1, was not bad, and that's why he's at number 10 for me instead of lower.
Eric,
I think his playing was better than the two people below him. That's my justification.
Eric should make a team of 5 and then just put defensive Arcanine at the end every week, basically. Yeah.
Honestly, that's not even the worst strategy.
Anyways, my number 11 was RTK, and we kind of already said our piece on him because you had him at 12, so I don't really have anything else to add that I haven't already. So we can go to your number 11.
Yeah, so I have Steve in the Milwaukee Sawsbucks at number 11 because I really
hate Steve.
I like making Steve upset. I find it very entertaining. And there's no such thing as bad publicity, so...
Fair enough.
Anyways, so this week he faced off against Fizz.
Yeah.
And Tyranitar happened against Steve. And yeah, I just kind of think that, I don't know, this match, I can see why you don't have Steve this low, because definitely I think a lot of this match goes more to a credit to Fizz than a negative to Steve, as it was only a 1-0 victory. But I think more of my justification for this is still off of his team. I still don't like it, and he still hasn't done enough to completely prove me wrong on it yet, I don't feel.
To be fair, Infernape got rocks up 2 weeks in a row.
It did get rocks up, but the thing is, I firmly believe that Infernape could have done better things both weeks if it didn't have to get rocks up.
I can agree to that this week, at least. Definitely.
Yeah. I just think that in general, that's just true with the versatile Pokemon that you see rocks up. It's like when Excadrill is forced to be your rocker. You don't want that Pokemon to be forced to be your rocker. It's fine if it is a couple weeks, but... That's just my opinion on it. And
Fair enough.
he didn't really have a lot for the
Celebi.
for anything. I don't know. I feel like the 1-0 victory, I don't feel like it was really that close. I feel like knowing Fizz's team, that just how some matches can be closer than the differential oftentimes, I feel like this one wasn't really. I feel like Fizz wasn't really as close as the differential said it was. I feel like Fizz controlled the match very effectively, and I think that he knew what he was doing in weakening everything and putting everything in range of Tyranitar, and I don't know. It just felt very controlled to me, and Steve didn't really have a lot of answers, so I don't know. He's going to stay low at number 11.
Fair enough. This is an opinion-based thing, so
Yeah.
you're entitled to that.
Also, just completely forewarning, I do not care about standings in my power rankings.
Yeah, did you notice on our little spreadsheet someone put next to your name, it
Yeah,
says
I
this
did.
man gives no craps about standings?
I did see that. I found it very entertaining, and I mean that just goes to more of my philosophical disagreement with how a lot of people do power rankings, especially early in the season. I don't like moving people too much based on result early on in the season, because basically I feel like power rankings are I'm predicting who's going to win the championship. So
You know what? That's fair enough, and that's actually probably good that it's you and me then, because I'm on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. The
that's
placement
totally
of
fine. It's respectable.
the placement of each week is one of the things I take into account the most. I start focusing more on that than anything else after the preseason draft is done. But I can understand your way as well. I'm not knocking it or anything. But
Yeah, totally.
I think that's good that we have two people on opposite ends of the spectrum. It gives more insight and whatnot. But anyways, did you want to add anything else on your number 10 is Eric? Did you want to add anything else on him?
No, I feel like I talked plenty about Eric.
All right, I'm not going to add too much about my number 10. My number 10 is Accrington Stantler. I can never say the name. And Ellie. I haven't moved them despite winning this week and playing very well because it wasn't Ellie. It was Mono. And I personally, going back to the whole philosophical way of how you do power rankings, I don't move people in power rankings unless they're the one that played. I did this in TVU as well. Me and Shroom, we had to agree upon a list, and I brought it up to him because I think we had Shoddy stand in for...
Jim. It was Jim.
It was Jim, yeah. Shoddy stood in for Jim one week, and we didn't move Jim despite Shoddy winning because we didn't think it was fair for
That's totally fair.
him to move up because of that. But I can understand still moving him just on the plays. So I don't really have anything to add that we haven't already mentioned between, like, with Eric's fight. You know, Mono did good. He knew what he had to do at the end to win between weakening the Arcanine and then having Zapdos and, what was the other thing? Zapdos and Talonflame with... Zapdos with enough HP and Talonflame with the scare tactic to be able to win in the end between the two of them. So it was well played by Mono, but I'm not going to be moving Ellie until she plays again.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally fair enough. I'll talk about Ellie later because she's just higher on mine.
Yep, that sounds good.
right,
Now
yeah.
we have all of the same for like 4 rows.
Yep, so here we go. I'll start off with Tup. Tup did much better this week, and in part, I think that was due to some of the transactions that he made. He got Keldeo, I believe, for week 2 that he did not have week 1, which means he no longer has Garchomp as his fastest Pokemon, which, you know, Keldeo and Garchomp, there's not that much difference between them, but outspeeding base 105s is a big deal. Because, like, if you have a base 105 that outspeeds basically your entire team, that's pretty bad. I mean, he has Galvantula, but he's also yet to bring that to a single match, and is also, he's yet to bring them a single match. So, I don't know. I kind of feel like, and I believe he's dropping Galvantula for the upcoming week, but, so it's good that he has a little bit more speed. I really liked his aggressive play this week. He had 2 Pokemon that didn't even need to touch the field, and, he was just able to utilize the momentum that he got up turn 1 with that Garchomp, got 2 kills, then he got his rocks up, came in with the rest of his offensive core and won the game. It was pretty simple game on Tup's part. I liked the game plan, and I think he executed it well, which is why he moved up from being my number 12 to number 9, because I was very impressed this week. He was able to stay on top of the game. He brought the right sets to deal with RTK's team, and it was effective.
Fair enough. You wrapped that up pretty well. I have Tup at number 9 because that SD turn 1 was so beautiful. It was just so good. I loved it. I saw it SD and I'm like, that's a dead Vaporeon. It was really good. He did well with Entei and Keldeo as well. Like you said, he brought in his offensive team and just wrecked. He didn't have to bring in Cresselia or Mega Sableye. Like, the 2 walls of the team just sat in the back and watched as HO just ran. But it was well played by him. Also, partially, you know, I have to move 12 up so I can put other people in 12 and 11. So That's
Yeah.
that's why he's number 9. No, I'm just kidding. But he did do well. I hope that he can keep the momentum going and keep doing well.
Good
It was a good match this week.
Definitely. You want to jump into Chi?
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump into Chi. That doesn't sound wrong at all. We've got Amazing Chi, the new Crustle United, in 8th. I needed 11th freed up for RTK, so I had to move him somewhere. But he did win this week. Who did he play? He played it was Evelyn, right?
Yes, Evelyn.
He played Evelyn.
3-0 victory.
Yes, he played Evelyn this week, and he got the most strategic of 10% paralysis chances at the start of the match on Meloetta, and I knew right then and there, this is the making of a champion. When you can get hacks off of Thunderbolt, that's how you know you're good at the game. But that was really, I'm pretty sure that was the majority of the hacks. He did make a bit of a misplay with Blastoise going for the obvious Dark Pulse, which ended up giving a +1 to track, but thankfully it was early enough in the game to where he could still handle it and managed to get the win in the end because he just played pretty well. Did some switching around, yada yada, all that good stuff. Meloetta was paralyzed. I can't get over that because I watched from Evelyn's perspective with that robotic voice saying that it was it's like and then he got the 10% cast.
Evelyn's upload this week was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I just have to say
it was so good. It was really unfortunate for Evelyn, but also Chi apparently forgot the Bronzong was a psychic type, but it happens to the best of us. But yeah, I mean he despite some missteps like forgetting Bronzong's typing and Dark Pulsing to the Terrakion switch in, he still managed to pull it out pretty well.
I mean, he made some good plays. I think switching into the Noivern on the Charizard, while his intention wasn't to take a Flare Blitz, it worked. So, can't complain about that. And, definitely a much stronger performance than week 1, so he's going to move up. And I don't really have a lot else to say. You cleaned it up very nicely.
Alright, you want to go on to number 7?
Yes. So, I'm pretty confident this is my biggest drop. So it does show that I do care a little bit about results. And this is, okay, first of all, luck happens. But also just was not prepared for setup sweepers at all. Jack in the #1 victory star. He's my number 7 this week after being my number 3 last week because I was so impressed after week 1 with a team that I was not necessarily the most, I didn't think it was necessarily the strongest team going into the season, but I don't know, Snorlax just completely blew through the entire team, and then so did Latios, and that's just a testament to Jack not bringing Whirlwind or Clear Smog on Skarmory or Gastrodon. And then, he missed Focus Blast with Alakazam, and that really just hurt the differential. Sorry, I'm pausing a lot. My throat's being weird right now.
It's fine.
But, so that hacks was unfortunate, but the biggest deal was his lack of way to deal with setup sweepers on his walls, and like that kind of more passive team style that I didn't necessarily like when I talked about his team initially, I think that really proved to bite him this week as he was a little too passive to deal with things like the Snorlax and the Latios, but at the same time, not bringing the right moves on the walls to make that passiveness, irrelevant. So, I think that's more of an error in prep than the way he played, and the luck was unfortunate, which turned it into a 5-0 instead of a 3-0 potentially. But that's Pokemon, and he still would have lost either way. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say.
You summed it up very nicely. I agree wholeheartedly, because I was just double-checking to make sure, but Jordinez did get 3 kills with Curslax and then 3 kills with Calmine Latias, so it was all the setup sweepers this week. I think Nidoqueen got in and got rocks, and Crawdaunt and Heracross did a little bit of pressuring, but other than that, it was pretty much Snorlax and Latias the whole way.
And Jordy is continuing to impress me with his team. I'll talk about him later, but for a team that I really, really didn't like, mainly because of the lack of versatility going into the season, his ability to pressure opponents' teams with his wall breakers and setup sweepers has been really impressive. So.
I agree with that completely, and we'll talk more about it when we get to him. But if that's all you have to say on Jack, I'll move on to number 6.
Sounds good.
Which we're still in agreement where we have the Herdier Bremen at number 6. I believe she's actually one of the only people she might be the only person other than Ellie that has stayed static for me, but you've moved her down a few.
Just a couple.
Yeah, she did lose this week to Chi. It was a little unfortunate. She got that 10% Thunderbolt paralyzed chance right on the start with one of her more threatening mons for the match. But you know, Pokemon happens. That's the occupational hazard all competitive players have to live by. Is, you know, someone can roll a dice and potentially you lose as a result. But she did try and recover pretty well. She did well with her Terrakion Predict. It was pretty obvious. I too was surprised when she didn't pick up on it, but she brought in Track on the Dark Pulse and got the Justified boost. Unfortunately, it wasn't late enough into the game for it to really matter too much. It did help her a bit, but you know, everything was still like full health and whatnot, so it wasn't enough for Tarak to just sweep shop. She did pretty well with Nidoking as well, putting on pressure and whatnot, which was kind of her only choice after her Meloetta got paralyzed for like speedy offense, since Tarak went down fairly early. But
yeah.
I've said the majority of what I wanted to say about their match between them. I didn't really move her any because everyone else moved around so much. I just really didn't have a place to move her to, so she just ended up staying as is.
Yeah, I did. She moved down from 4 to 6 for me, and it definitely wasn't the worst of performances. But one thing was, even though she did switch in that Terrakion was a potential win con, and a big win con at that, especially after the Meloetta was paralyzed. And so I'm not necessarily sure that switching in that Terrakion there was the correct play, because trying to save it for the latest possible moment when it actually had a chance to sweep, I think was her only chance to win the game. Though you could also debate that, given the hole she was already in, she couldn't have won the game anyway, and she got a better differential loss by switching in there. So, I mean, that argument can go both ways for sure, but I'm just not 100% sure whether that's the right play. But it was still like a good, one-turn prediction nonetheless. And I think that her plan going into the game was really good with Meloetta, so that's why she definitely is going to stay in my top half of the rankings. And I think it'll be interesting to see if she can make a push for a championship. I definitely think she has the caliber team to. But yeah, I don't know. It was like not necessarily good or bad, and I was more impressed by other people who went ahead of her, I guess.
I can understand that completely. I'm about in the same boat. But do you you can hit up your number 5, then I'll do mine?
Yeah, sounds good. So my number 5, I have the Accrington Stantler. Now, this isn't as much of a testament to the playing, obviously, because Mono was the assistant coach who took over for this week. However, I do think it is a testament that while I wasn't necessarily the most high on the team to begin with, the team can function really well. And I think in and of itself in the game, Mono didn't really play make too many predictions, and I know Ellie to be a very solid player, but the team just kind of played itself and proved to be very, very powerful. And so my own prediction is that when Ellie does get back starting next week, she'll be able to continue the momentum that Mono started and prove to be a bigger threat and take on Jordan next week in a very big match.
That's going to be a good week.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my reasoning, is I just think it's more of a testament to showing that the team can work necessarily rather than the coach, which is why she moved up but didn't jump a ton despite the impressive victory, especially through all the hacks too. And even though, I don't know. I just think that that's a fair place, and I think that that's closer to where Ellie will end up at the end of the season than lower down.
Fair enough. My number 5, this is kind of funny, because you've got Ellie up top, I've got her really low still, and then you've got Steve really low, and now I've got Steve up here at 5, and every week that this happens, as I'm making my PR list, yours is normally up before mine, so I look and see, okay, where do you place Steve? Oh yeah, Steve's 6 spaces away from where I put him. That must mean I'm good at my job. But anyways, I have Steve at number 5. I honestly do kind of like his team, but I'm also bad at the game, so take that with a pinch of salt. So I still like his team, and that's why I had him pretty high up in the start. And I didn't watch Fizz's side, which I think I'm going to go watch it after this, now that you've said this whole, he had the whole thing. It did seem like I'm not saying that Fizz played badly or anything. I'm not saying that he, won by even though it was a 1-0, I don't think he won sort of by the skin of his teeth either, because T-Tar came in and wrecked house. But I didn't see as much of the whole, in control the whole time thing that you apparently did. That might just be because I only watched Steve's end. But it was, I still thought that it was a very well-played match. He only lost 1-0. He brought it in really close to who you and I have both had in the top. I believe Fizz has been in the top 2 for the entirety of the season so far in the 2 weeks we've had. So, and Steve was relatively low at the start of the season for the majority of people. And definitely his biggest problem. I can agree with you that he didn't use the Infernate to the best of his abilities, and I don't know if you watched Steve's end of the match, but he also said that he did not use it to the best of his abilities.
No, I did.
He did, yeah, because he said at the end that he used it. Yeah, he said he agreed. We all kind of saw at the end, he did the one-turn take-out Excadrill at the cost of bringing his Infernate to 1 HP from the sash, and it seemed amazing at the start of the match, but when the match got further in, it kind of started to show how useful it would have been to have kept Infernate early on. Yeah, for stuff like T-Tar. But regardless of that, I still think the biggest problem he had was Celebi. He had plenty of mons that should be able to kill Celebi, but he didn't have the stuff on them this week to be able to do so. So he definitely suffered greatly on Celebi. It constantly came in and caused him problems. It was able to 1v1 his Scizor, his Blastoise, and his Shaman. All 3 of them, I believe, at one point in the match was 1v1'd by the Celebi. So it gave Fizz a very easy switch into many of his mons and put a lot of pressure on him. I do have to shout out Agility Aerial Ace Scizor, though, for working perfectly to just destroy.
Oh yeah, that was really cool, I have to say. I think that's the one point where I can definitely say, Fizz didn't necessarily have momentum, but I think even through that point, he had, was looking towards the late game, and after he put Infernate with that sash, I don't think there was really a whole lot Steve could do going into the late game. That's just my opinion towards the match.
I can understand that, but the agility baton pass didn't help that much, but agility Aerial Ace just taking out the one-shotting the Volcarona was very good. So that's why I still have Steve pretty high. I think he's only moved down 1 slot for me from last week, but I hope that he can come back from it because I do really like his team, and I like Steve as a person. His commentary is great. So. Oh no,
I love Steve's videos. They're great.
12th place next week after he gets a 6-0 victory. Am I right?
I mean, don't tempt me.
But anyways, that's really all I have to say on Steve. So I guess we can. Do you want to do your number 3 first or me?
I'll do it.
Or no, number 4. My bad.
Number 4. Yeah. I will talk about my man Jordy, who has really, not enough reallys in there, impressed me this season. Just from the way he's been using his Pokemon, he's basically sold me on his draft, which I'm very, very critical of the way people draft things, and also critical of the way people prep, as those I think are the two more important elements to a game. I think, in draft league format, if you prep well and you have a good team, it's really hard to lose as long as you don't make bad plays. I don't think you rarely will need to make quote-unquote predictions if you prep effectively. But I think that he's been able to do that. He's just been able, this week, isolated the fact that that Jack's team was very weak to setup sweepers, as it had a lot of passive walls, and was able to pressure the P2 with the Heracross and the Crawdon, and then was able to blow through the team with Snorlax and Calm Mind Latios.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's all you really have to say. Jordan is also my number 4. He's moved up for both of us. We both had pretty much the same problems with his draft, I believe, at the start, where it was didn't have any Pokemon, not a ton of versatility, and but he's proven that he can make it work. So I'm excited to see him keep going. He's undefeated so far. I'm really looking forward. You said he's fighting Ellie week 3, right?
I believe so.
I'm pretty sure. So I'm really looking forward to that. 2 good players with drafts that we found rather unconventional, but have been working fairly well. So I am excited for that match, but you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I don't have much else to add except for the fact that I love Crawdon, and I'm so glad to see someone using it well.
Crawdon's amazing. I love it too.
But anyways, I guess we can go on to number 3. I'll start us off. This is where we start to deviate a bit again. I actually have Kyle, of all people, at number 3, after being in first place for both of us last week. Kyle has fallen into number 3 for me. I will say this. More so of the reason that he's dropped 2 spaces for me is because I wanted to move first and second to where they are. So
that makes sense.
So I just want to throw that in. I'm not saying that Kyle did incredibly bad this week or anything to drop from first to third. Just more so that I wanted personally to move up the people who are in first and second for me now.
That's
But
fair enough.
Kyle did get pretty unlucky this week. The match could have gone either way had he not gotten hacked the way he did. But he unfortunately missed a stun spore. But I mean, come on, man, it's stun spore. Like turn 2 of the match, and had to take massive damage on his Whimsicott as a result. Really put him on a bit of a back foot. And then later on, he got. I laugh every time I think of it because I love it when people. This is a horrible thing to say, but I love it when people who are like really good at the game, because I'm sure we can all agree Kyle is pretty darn good at Pokemon. I love it when people who are good at the game just get hacked in the most unbelievable way possible, because it brings you back to the fact that
Shout out to my good friend Jolt. He knows all about that. Continue.
It always brings back this one thing that I always say about Pokemon, is that literally anyone can win, because at the end of the day, a lot of the time, Pokemon can come down to a dice roll. But I'm pretty sure he did the math. He had like a 1% chance of a scenario happening, and it happened, and he lost. He had his Thundurus T behind a sub. Reflect was up. He was against the Donphan. This was after a Hydro Pump from Rotom had been missed onto Manaphy, so Manaphy lived 1 extra turn, so that burned out another turn of his Reflect. And then the Rotom went down. Donphan came in. The Manaphy went down. Thundurus T came in. Oh no, yeah, Rotom went down. Manaphy went down to, I believe, Lopunny, Mega Lopunny, and then Thundurus T came in. Lopunny switched out into Donphan, kind of as a sack, I think, or something like that. And the Thundurus T set up a nasty plot, and then he sets up the substitute. The same turn that Donphan goes for Ice Shard. Ice Shard does, like, I think Kyle calced it had a 24.5% max roll, so can't break a sub. The sub gets set up after the Ice Shard hits because priority, and then Donphan goes for an Ice Shard, gets a crit, breaks the sub, as the Donphan is like 60%. The +2 Thundurus T goes for Hidden Power Ice. The Donphan has Yachi Berry, gets like the minnest of min rolls with HP Ice, so that Donphan lives on 1 HP and can Ice Shard again as the Reflect wears off.
Yeah.
And it was just the cornucopia.
It was the most insane. Okay, the second most insane instance of hacks I've ever seen.
It was a cornucopia of unfortunate events for Kyle, and it led to him losing, I believe, 3-0.
Yeah, that's what happened. I have nothing else to add. My number 3, I have the recipient of that cornucopia, Ruby and the Cleveland Bros. Now, I did move him up 2 spots because he was my number 1 after preseason, and I wasn't even sure if he deserved to move down as much as he did after week 1, but he still played well and brought good sets this game and put himself in the position to win the game, you know, with that 1% chance, so credit to him for that. I mean, he did manage to take out Kyle, and I think in general, games that are decided by hacks would be fairly close if they didn't happen. Now this one, because of such the minute chance, I'm not necessarily sure about that, but still, he definitely played and prepped well and was a better showing than week 1, where I actually think he deserved to win and actually got hacked a little bit. So that's interesting to see, and I think that, you know, going forward from now, he's kind of, you know, balanced out the hacks, if not a little overbalanced. But, you know, if he continues to not get hacks either way, I think he'll definitely be able to win most of his games going forward, and will finish the season in a very strong position.
Nice. Well, I'll go ahead and do my number 2, since that's also Ruby. Can go right off of your speech on him. I have Ruby at number 2, much for the same reasons. You know, he did definitely get hacks. There's no denying that. And I personally think, I went over this stuff, and there are a few different ways that it could have gone from what I saw, where it still could have gone either way. I think it probably would have gone a little more in favor of Kyle, but there was still a chance of either winning. And
I think a chance, but I think it was heavily slated in Kyle's favor. That's just my opinion.
I can agree with that. But, you know, hacks happens. That's the occupational hazard of playing competitive Pokemon, and it just so happened to hit really hard on Kyle this week. And, you know, hacks is going to happen, and you've got to take advantage of it when it does. You can't just like, oh, no, this is so unfortunate that I got lucky. And that's what Ruby did. It happened, and he took advantage of it, and he got a 3-0 victory. He did it well. I think he was a little over-careful with the Weavile, the Scarf Weavile, going in and losing a differential to Donphan, to Ice Shard, to I think he said he wanted to scout. He either wanted to scout for protect or he wanted to break a sash if it existed. I don't know which.
I think that's what it was. I think it was the sash.
Yeah, but I thought that was a little overkill because Kyle at that point said he was just going for flinches because it was his only chance, which is reasonable at that point after that horrible hacks to Thunderous T. But yeah, you pretty much summed it up. You know, he got a little haxed in the first week, and we still had him pretty high because of that. And this week he got paid back in spades. And so he's staying a little pretty high on the list. And I look forward to seeing, hopefully, hacksless weeks from him in the future, because I know that he can do well with the team he has, and I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so my number 2, I have Fizzy Yo Fizz. I almost shout out to Fizzy Stardust, but anyways, we have Fizz in the Atlanta Haluchas as my number 2. Same spot he was last week, a very solid performance. Bashful T-Tar coming through. I thought that was really, really cool, and because he didn't want to lower the speed so he could outpace things like Scizor, but he didn't want to lower his defenses so he could still more easily take things like a Bullet Punch, and he had mixed attacks. So I really like that bring. I think Neutral Nature is just something that you rarely ever see in Pokemon, and he was creative enough to come up with it and utilize it as a complete win con, as well as Celebi as a defensive win con, especially after that Infernape got brought down to his stash, as with that Infernape down into Sash, Fizz's 2 most threatening members to his team, Tyranitar and Celebi, were basically able to take down all of Steve's team, whether it be passive or offensive.
Yeah, you summed it up really well. I have Fizz at number 1 for me this week. The Bashful T-Tar, like you said, you don't often see No Nature. Most people would be scrambling around like, oh, what can I give up here? Can I give up speed? Can I give up defense? Can I give up special defense?
Yeah.
Few people ever realize that, hey, you can just choose none. But
Exactly.
but he did, and it was very clever on his part. I love seeing mixed T-Tar. It was a really good bring on his part. And like you said, you know, the Celebi and the T-Tar just ran shop after Infernape got brought down to Sash. That was definitely Steve's biggest mistake this week. But yeah, Fizz did incredibly well with it, and I'm really impressed with how well he's been playing, because when I first saw his team, I saw the double weather, and I was like, oh no, because I had never watched Fizz before he got into PPL, so this is like the second match I've ever seen Fizz
I
in.
didn't know that.
So I know that he's got a reputation of being really good after all of the crying shot he did when he saw that he was in the league, but I wasn't sure of it, and when I saw the double weather team, I was like, what is this? You're gonna like switch up weathers every week? But
It's a very Fizz team.
yes, but he hasn't even utilized sand that much, and he hasn't brought rain at all. So I mean, he's utilized sand, but not in the conventional means, because he keeps letting Excadrill die repeatedly. But I've been very impressed so far, which he's lived up to the hype that I've heard of him, and I definitely look forward to seeing more from him. So that's why he's first for me for now.
The one thing I just to throw a little tidbit on there on the Neutral Natures, I'm not exactly sure on what Fizz's spread was 100%, but most of the time you can actually get a more efficient spread and just have overall higher stats if you put that minus nature in whatever your lowest stat is. So if he had put that minus in speed, but then invested enough in speed to make up for it, but then you would have needed significantly less. I cannot remember for the life of me what his EVs were. I probably should have checked that before making these points. But whether or not, say he was invested heavily into attack or special attack before, right? He can then boost that special attack with the nature and then invest less in it, and with those extra EVs, put them in speed, you actually end up with higher stats. And I think almost every single scenario. I think there might be an exception with, maybe with base 100s, it's either equal or it doesn't necessarily matter, but most of the time it's not the way to go. But I mean, he did it and it worked, and it's definitely easier to do than to mess around with your EV spreads until you figure out the exact one that's more efficient.
Why are you putting so much math in my Pokemon?
I don't know.
That is really interesting, though. I was not aware of this. I love learning new stuff like that.
Yeah, for someone, I'm really, really nitpicky with EV spreads and customizing them to be the most efficient. It's why it upsets me when someone runs Timid Nature. I actually did this on accident in one of my leagues and I got really upset at myself, but when someone runs a Timid Nature on something and then invests a lot into bulk when they're say their special attack is significantly higher, when they could run a modest nature, hit that same speed, just run slightly less special attack, hit that same HP number, but have 20 more special attack points because of the nature. So
I can
just
understand
stuff like that.
I can understand that.
But that was 2-3 minute rant on EVs. But I'll just hop in my number 1. We talked about Fizz enough. Good job, Fizz. I have Kyle and the Harlem Gloomtrotters still at number 1 despite the loss. Now, this could be partially biased because Kyle is one of my best friends on YouTube, but I think that he still had the best Week 1 performance out of anyone. And I think from a team-building perspective and the way that he played, he had one of the best this week too. I think he deserved to win that game in all likelihood. And so I see no reason to move him down. He is still at this point my pick to eventually end up with the number 1 spot in the league, and that's not going to change. So he's going to stay at number 1.
I'm going to have to move Kyle down to like number 14 to balance this out. But that's understandable. I can understand that. Kyle,
do it, I dare you. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you've summed it up pretty well. I can understand not moving him down. I more so just wanted to move the other 2 up. I didn't want to move Kyle down much at all. But yeah, I think that's good for this week. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, it's totally respectable too.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much good. Good week of matches. It was fun to watch.
All right, well, everyone, thank you for watching. We hope that you enjoyed. Be sure to leave your own opinions for PR in the comment section down below. Let us know what you thought. If you thought we ranked someone too high or too low, you know, we love to hear opinions and occasionally pay attention to them and not discount them. But it's always great to hear someone else's perspective. Be sure to check out all of the coaches for D2. They should be in the links down below, as well as the analysts. We've got other videos going up on PPL, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the season. But anyways, thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week. Farewell.